I'd like to start a series of videos on current events that I'll be calling of practical importance. Moral theory is fun and all, but ultimately moral theory ought to say something about what is actually right or wrong, good or bad. So in this series, I wish to apply the theory that I defend in other videos to actual events and render a moral verdict. Well, let me start by just describing briefly the theory that I defend and how it can be applied. There's lots of videos on this channel where I go into detail. This is just a sketch. On this view, I evaluate an act as wrong according to whether people generally have reasons to give everybody reasons not to perform acts of that type. I use drunk driving as an example. To get behind the wheel of a car and try to drive while drunk is an immoral act. Doing so puts others at risk of death and injury, and for no good reason. Even by creating a risk, drunk drivers impose costs on others by driving up insurance rates and creating other costs that all aim to protect people from the harms that drunk drivers inflict. Drunk driving is wrong because people generally, you, me, our friends, family, neighbors, strangers, people generally have reasons to give everybody, every one of us, reasons to choose not to drive while drunk. We have reasons to give people external reasons not to drive while drunk. A paradigm example of external reasons are criminal penalties, fines, suspending a license, imprisonment. But external sanctions also include social sanctions, such as mere expressions of condemnation and contempt, withdrawing friendship or cooperation, withdrawing invitations to participate in events, depriving people of membership in clubs, or voting people out of office, or refusing to vote them into office, boycotts, picketing. These types of acts are external sanctions, external reasons not to engage in certain types of behavior. We also have reasons to create internal reasons not to drive while drunk. Most people who decide not to drive while drunk aren't primarily seeking to avoid external sanctions. They see the wrongness of driving while drunk. They have an internal drive not to be the type of person to impose such costs and risks on others. To say that drunk driving really is wrong is to say that it's the type of act that really should be associated with these types of internal thoughts and drives not to perform acts of that type. Looking at it from the other side, an example of a type of act that is not wrong is homosexual relationships. People have no reason to create external or internal reasons not to engage in homosexual relationships. Homosexual relationships don't inflict death or injury on others, or inflict any type of harm that provides others with a reason to give everybody a reason not to engage in those types of relationships. So this is just a couple of examples to illustrate what the theory says and how it gets implied. But what would we say about the following? What position should we take on the act of invading and trying to conquer other countries simply because one wants to control more territory? Or what would we say about a case in which a private citizen with no special authorization, stealing top secret documents from the government and keeping them in a desk drawer at work, then lying to the government and claiming one doesn't have them when the government asks that they be returned? Or what about the practice of causing illegal votes to be cast and then trying to arrange it so that the illegal votes get counted in the place of legal votes in order to alter the results of an election? Now, what should we say about cancel culture? Silencing people to prevent them from saying something one disapproves of rather than demonstrating that what they say is flawed. Or where do you get the moral legitimacy of claiming that a pool of oil or metals or other resources that have been sitting in nature belongs to me or us and claiming the rights to own it and to sell it? Or forcing somebody who took risks in an enterprise and was successful and could have lost everything to share their wealth they have acquired with those who didn't participate and made no contribution to the effort? Or telling people what types of relationships they can enter into and with whom, including not only relationships of family and friendship, but business relationships and other forms of association. I want to repeat that if you want to know the theory behind the principles that I'll be applying to make these judgments, well, I have a lot to say about whether there are moral facts, what kind of thing value is, and how we can know what has value and what doesn't. But That's just not what we're discussing in this series. In this series, I'll be looking at what people generally, including you, have reasons to give everybody else reasons not to do. Some questions will have easy answers, some of them not so easy. And in either case, I think they are questions worth asking and trying to answer.